You think Vikings were terrifying because of axes and fury. That's the myth. The real fear came from a system designed to make defense impossible. They didn't just attack. They rewrote the rules of distance, time, and risk. In the next minutes, you'll see the ship tech that broke medieval maps, the strategy that turned fear into income, and the social engine that kept crews coming. There's one feature that made them feel like they could teleport past defenses. I'll show you in under a minute. And yes, we'll explain why walls, armies, and plans kept failing against small wooden boats. Medieval rulers imagined danger as a line on a coast. Build a wall here, post a garrison there, and fleets will bounce off. That logic works against deep draft ships that need harbors, pilots, and time. The Vikings hacked that entire model with one design choice: shallow draft. That's the feature. A shallow draft, clinker-built hull sits light in the water. Add a square sail for wind and oars, for calm or stealth, and suddenly your navy is a river animal. It can beach without a port, pivot in tight bends, and glide over sandbars that would stop bigger hulls cold. You don't fight for the harbor anymore. You just pick a quiet stretch of bank, step out, and you're in. Here's the thing most people miss. The longship wasn't only transport. It was logistics, strategy, and psychology in one frame. Because it rode high, crews could portage, haul the vessel over short land gaps between waterways, linking river systems that defenders assumed were separate. That turns a coastline into a network, and a network into options. Options mean surprise. Surprise means initiative. Once you can slide up rivers, the map flips. Lindisfarne felt like the edge of the world. But the shock wasn't just religious. It was geographic. We're safe inland no longer exists. Paris sits on the Seine for trade and calm water. That same river becomes a runway. A village built for markets, not war, wakes up to oars on a foggy morning, and there's no time to muster, coordinate, or even warn the next town. Now here's where most defenses fail. Heavy ships need deep water and predictable channels. Static garrisons wait in fortresses that raiders simply bypass. Slow musters create armies that arrive after the exit. Mobility plus choice of entry and exit beats strength if strength can't be in the right place at the right time. Let me show you exactly how that plays out. A crew sails the coast under canvas, ducks into a river mouth, rows quietly at night, lands on a flat bank, hits a target built for prayer or trade, grabs portable wealth, silver, cloth, captives, then pushes off with the tide. If the response forms up downstream, they portage across to a parallel stream and vanish. If it forms upstream, they slip back to sea. The ship is a decision engine. Every mile offers forks. Every fork is leverage. If you remember nothing else about the tech, remember this. Shallow draft plus mixed propulsion equals speed, silence, and total freedom to choose where, when, and how to fight, or to not fight at all. Transition. From mobility to leverage. 30 words. Once you can appear anywhere, you don't need to burn everything. You need to be believed. The next move turns fear into predictable revenue, and it scales faster than conquest ever could. The psychological weapon. Danegeld and predictable threat. 420 words. Random violence is messy, risky, and costly. Predictable threat is a business. The Vikings learned that a reputation backed by a credible first strike could buy them the one thing rulers fear losing: stability. That's the logic behind Danegeld. Payment for peace, renewed as needed. Here's the shortcut nobody teaches. Danegeld works because both sides think it's rational. Raiders reduce risk by avoiding prolonged fights. Rulers reduce political chaos by avoiding sack and panic. But the key is sequencing. First, demonstrate reach. Arrive where you're not expected, preferably by river. Second, demonstrate capacity. Siege or sack something that matters enough to force attention. Third, set terms and a timeline. Miss the deadline, and the pain resumes. That makes terror predictable. Predictable terror is governable terror. This clicked for me when I realized the defender's problem wasn't courage. It was time. Muster cycles, messengers, and regional politics ran slower than oars and current. Paying tribute bought time to organize, build, and keep elites calm. Leaders hate uncertainty more than they hate cost, because uncertainty breaks coalitions. Danegeld turns the unknown into a line item. Now here's where most rulers messed up. They paid once, but changed nothing about rivers, musters, or mobility. They treated it like a one-off ransom instead of a system. The result? The same crews, or their friends, returned with the same logic and better leverage. Fortifications sprang up, but often in the wrong places, guarding coasts while rivers stayed open, building big walls while bridges remained weak, central musters that arrived after the fleet had already left. The reason this works is simple economics. A successful payout funds more ships, attracts more crews, and increases bargaining power next season. Tribute isn't the end of violence, it's the start of a subscription. You're not paying for peace, you're paying to delay pain. And if the delay lets the raiders grow, you're underwriting your next negotiation from a weaker position. Let me make this practical with a mental model. Think of Danegeld as an invoice attached to a demonstration. The demo proves capability. The invoice lists terms. The timeline forces a decision. If rulers respond with reforms, fortified bridges, faster local levies, river chains, the price may fall or the attacks shift. If they don't, the fee repeats, often bigger. If you remember nothing else about the psychology, remember this. Credible reach plus a clock creates pressure. Pressure makes money. And money keeps ships in the water. Payments didn't quench the fire, they fueled it. To see why the pressure stayed steady, sometimes even grew, you have to look inside the society that kept sending eager crews to sea. If ships gave them reach, and Danegeld gave them profit, society gave them supply. The thing most people miss is that raiding plugged into everyday life as a normal path to status and security. Land in Scandinavia wasn't infinitely elastic. Inheritance could be tight, and younger sons needed a way to rise without waiting decades. Raiding turned summer into opportunity. What is the engine? It's a seasonal cycle plus social rewards, backed by markets that turned risk into silver. Spring, crews gather, reputations recruit, and ship owners spread cost and reward across kin and allies. Summer, strikes along coasts and rivers, moving light and fast. Autumn, markets, the nodes that convert mixed loot into money. Winter, feasting, gift-giving, marriages, and the quiet accounting that decides who signs on next year. Now, the trick is how risk gets distributed. A single failed raid doesn't crash the system because ships are small, decisions are local, and losses don't sink a centralized state. Meanwhile, success stories echo. One crew brings back silver, silk, or captives who can be ransomed or sold. And suddenly, more hands want oars. The longship becomes a hiring poster you can see from the beach. Here's the shortcut nobody teaches. The economy behind the blade mattered more than the blade. You had ship ownership networks, chieftains, merchants, and craftsmen who pooled timber, iron, and sails. You had trade hubs willing to buy what raids supplied, from worked metal to enslaved labor. You had social credit, gifts, bride wealth, and alliances, powered by portable wealth. Every silver arm ring wasn't just jewelry. It was a receipt and a promise. Let me show you exactly how that plays out for a young recruit. He signs on with an experienced steersman, learns rivers and tides, returns with a small share, and that share buys gear, earns a place at the table, maybe funds a marriage. Next season, he brings 2 cousins. Scale comes from stories. The more predictable the returns, thanks to Danegeld and known river routes, the easier it is to plan the next voyage. Defenders missed this because they looked for an army to beat in one battle. What arrived instead was a labor market in motion, a navy run like a venture portfolio. Small bets, fast pivots, cut losses early, double down on what works. If you remember nothing else about the economy, remember this. Decentralized risk plus liquid markets equals resilience. Break ships, and more are built. Pay tribute, and recruitment posters write themselves. But systems have pressure points. Once rulers attack the mobility, the markets, and the muster math, not just the raiders, the fear curve bent downward, and the invoice got harder to collect. The game changer nobody talks about is how the defenders learned to think like river people. Start with the waterways. Fortified bridges turned highways into gates. Add boom chains across channels, towers with line of sight, and small garrisons at bends. Suddenly, a glide upstream met iron and stone. The longship's choice engine lost branches. Meanwhile, musters got faster. Instead of one big army that always arrived late, regions built layered alarms, beacons, riders, and local levies that could form in hours, not weeks. Mobile response bands shadowed rivers, denying quiet landings and forcing fights on worse terms. Once you nail that, everything else clicks. If surprise shrinks, negotiation leverage shrinks with it. Economics shifted too. Some payments came with strings, time to build bridges, raise fleets, and tie ransoms to reforms. Coastal and riverine defenses got funded by new taxes and more centralized rule. Kings used the pressure to justify authority. Collect, build, coordinate. The very uncertainty that once broke politics now built states that could answer the ore rhythm with their own. There's a subtle outcome here. Mobility dominates first. Infrastructure and coordination catch up later. When bridges hold and patrols move, raiders face a new math. More ambush risk on rivers, fewer undefended markets inland, and less time to unload before a local band shows up. Raiding doesn't vanish overnight, but the subscription rate goes down and payouts shrink or shift. Don't do what early rulers did. Fortify only the coast. Defend the river lattice, train rapid local forces, and keep small ships ready to mirror mobility. That's how Europe, piece by piece, turned the anywhere, anytime terror into something a calendar and a bridge could manage. Here's the takeaway. Vikings were terrifying because ship design, predictable leverage, and a decentralized raiding economy stacked into one machine that made defense too slow and too expensive. If that clicked, the next step is seeing it in action. Watch the deep dive on the bridge that blocked a river and rewired a capital's defense. Subscribe for more myth-busting history that trades noise for clear, useful insight, and turn fear into understanding in 10 minutes at a time.